Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the 8th audio chat on the Q News Patriot channel. I'm the Q News Patriot coming to you with Harry, the Soul Coach. My name is SG Anon. It's really good to come to you today because the topic that we have to discuss, I think, is of paramount importance, and we really don't get a whole lot of it. We get a lot of the current events. We get a lot of the focus on the coded messages, things that are happening in real time. The craving, the curiosity for the truth, right? What's real? What's occurring around me? What can I use practically, applicably to execute things in my life right here, right now? But one of the major points of this entire process that we're going through really is the Great Awakening. The Great Awakening not only to the evil, but also to our own power. The Great Awakening not only to the level of corruption and the level of distortion that exists out there in the world, but also to the realities of what are really possible here in the world, right? When mankind is unfettered, unobfuscated, and being expressed in its purest form here in the world, how do the forces of nature, the forces of God, and that Holy Spirit that binds all of us together, how do they dovetail and help us live this reality, live this life, and create the type of world that we want to see? And so today, to talk a little bit about all of these different things, and to receive my personal thanks for an event that he put together while I was down for surgery, I'm coming to you today with a gentleman named Harry, the Soul Coach. We're going to talk a little bit about espionage war. We're going to talk a little bit about sleight of hand, but we're really going to focus hard on what happens when mankind learns who we really are and when we learn how to read all of the symbols within and contained within our reality and not just the words on a page. So without further ado, Harry, thank you very much for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for this opportunity.
So, one of the things that I think we should get into first, and then we'll move into some of the more current events, and we'll come back around to this at the end, sort of like a sandwich maneuver, is the process of love and love-based intentionality and focusing on things from an arena of calm and from an arena of centeredness, right? When I went down for the surgery that I had, you were one of the premier ones that introduced a guided healing meditation or a period of time for just calming the mind and sending out a lot of love-based appreciation and gratitude. And I've had a remarkable recovery in this process. The recovery has actually blown away a couple of doctors now and a physical therapist. And I'm very thankful for that. And I'm extraordinarily grateful and appreciative myself. But I can't deny that it is the prayers of those out there like yourself and the meditative offerings like the one that you did that furthered a lot of that process. In other words, amplified my own body's being, my own capability to do that moving forward. So I thought, we would talk a little bit about how we affect one another here in the world, why this cabal has leveraged that against us, has understood how powerfully effective or how deadly effective division really can be, and how we convert to what we want to. I shouldn't say convert, how we transmute this world into a new world, into a better world through that process.
Yeah, and the key word is love, and I feel that if we can simplify it even more, everything that we're seeing now is to come back to God, to know that God is real and God wins, which we've been told many times. And we have the word of God and we have had experience of God. If we can simplify it even more, just to allow people to see, look, we're already in that God space. How would you define God as energy? If you was to give it a description, love. So if we can accept love into our life and we can start seeing what love is in all its forms, because God is all of creation, then we can start coming from a place of love, which the deep state and the evil cabal, they can't experience. They don't know what love is. They've never been in that God space. They've been trying to hide it from us through the psyop of the mind. But when we come within the body and really connect to our feelings, that's what we then put out. So when you mentioned about the healing and receiving all the prayers, you were also open to receive that love space. And if we can simplify life to healing down to inside the body, that is also love. The body loves you unconditionally, God. And the body is always doing what it can to heal you. The other thing that the body does do is listen to the mind. And if we can then start working on our mindset, the mind sets the body. So it all comes back to that powerful word, love, but it's actually feeling the word rather than reading it, rather than hearing it. It comes from within us. And I really encourage people to know that we are love. If we pay attention to the way that we come into this world. And if we look at a baby, that is just love. It's divine. It's God's creation, God's children. We carry that with us our whole life. And it's our body, our vessel, which protects that from any outside source. So if we can start using the mind now to be the gatekeeper to our inner temple, all of a sudden you'll start seeing that we are so powerful, and collectively then we're a force that they can't stop. And that's where we've got to this moment in time.
You know, I really like how you frame this discussion about the mind setting the body, and how the conscious focus on love, which is God, right? The book says God is love. How that amplifies really our natural being, our natural state, right? It helps to restore some balance, if you will. This is why a lot of people, especially individuals of the older generation, like my grandmother, when they go into a quiet prayer, that's exactly what it is. It's a extracted from the world, cut off just briefly for a little while, and it's just a sitting in total silence and loving God and appreciating God and appreciating that there is a dynamic between us, and that there's a dynamic really through us, right? Between implies separation, but there's not really separation at the end of the day. Our cells are sustained by a life force. That life force has to flow to us continuously. But I think there is maybe a pinching off. We can get significantly pinched off when we get into this sort of sinful mindset, sort of going against what we know to be right. We can feel it deep in our bones. It's this egging in the back of the mind. It just won't stop. And so when we come into agreement with whatever that is, it feels peaceful, it feels refreshing, it feels light, it feels rejuvenating. And I think that's really what we're talking about, is the recognition of the spirit flowing to us, which is a spirit of love, and that love making our body more in balance with itself. I was reading an article actually not too long ago, because of what was happening with my surgery and my recovery, and how rapidly it sort of started progressing right out of the gate and in a very positive manner. And I happened upon an experiment that happened with a Japanese researcher. I believe it was in the early 2000s. And this gentleman had taken a pool of water and had several people come into the room with this water. I say a pool, it was really a cup of water on a table, but had taken this water and had many people shower it with praises and love and affection, find a very grateful, appreciative place. And he literally asked them to talk to this glass of water for 15 minutes and just shower it with as much love as they could muster. And when they felt themselves tiring, to step back, right? And so what happened was this water was examined underneath a microscope after 15 minutes, and it had these beautiful lattice crystalline structures. They were incredible. It looked like something, even better than what the crazy cinematic theaters have contrived and shown on popular media. But what was fascinating is when he conducted the reverse of the experiment and had the same individuals come in and be hateful with the water for 4 minutes, or be negative, or be wish it harm, or wish it ill will, or harbor revenge about the water, or be mad about what the water did to him on the roadway the other day, right? Things like this. The water showed up underneath the microscope, and it was very fractured, and it just really looked ugly. And so what this scientist concluded, was that the energy that we put out, especially to the things that are in our immediate space, because we are electrical light-based beings, we emit energetic core components, right? That's who we really are. We are a flesh suit, we are the body, but we're also a living soul. We're also a living spirit. We're walking through this world in a multidimensional sense. And when we put off that energy, it does affect the things in the space. And these individuals very powerfully affected this water. And so that comes to mind when I look at my recovery process, and I think to myself, it really in what amounts to about 6 to 8 weeks time now, I am more recovered functionally than I have been in a very long time, even prior to this injury.
Yeah, it's spot on, and that's how simple it is. If you look at that, there was another guy called Dr. Enomoto who froze the water, and it was based on love, and you could see the difference when you spoke to it with hate and anger. And for people out there watching who speak to their plants, you can see, if you type on Google, speaking to plants experiments, it's the same thing. You speak to one with love, it grows and thrives. And if you do the opposite in that same month, that plant starts to deteriorate and die. We're made up of 70% water of our body, we're told. That body's not sloshing around. That's integrated within our fascia system, our web. So the words that we speak, that's a vibration that's actually impacting our body. And the shapes that you mentioned, you could only say God could create something that beautiful. And they're geometric shapes. They're all unique as well in their own expression. So again, that happens in our body. So the way that I like to work is that you are the truth. Truth, if you define that as a feeling, is also love. Truth is God. Truth is the soul. So if you closed your eyes and we went straight to your feelings, which is more powerful than anything else, that's the truth. So right now, if you're listening, I'd ask you, your truth is love. What's the opposite of love? Fear. So if I asked you, how are you feeling right now? If in this moment, love or fear, then already sudden you're already in your truth at that moment. So right now you're healing. Right now your body's in harmony. And I do a talk about the inner body, how our words and our feelings actually express the makeup inside. And you can pull one cell out of the human body, and that one cell inherently knows what to do. It's like it's got its own God within that. But it also has every single thing about you in that one cell. And there was an experiment where you put the cell in a petri dish and you put food in the petri dish. And by the end of the day, the cell makes its way to the food. It knows. If you pulled that same cell out and put it in a petri dish with poison in, by the end of the day, it moves away from it to protect. So your cells have one or the other too. Grow or protect. Grow is flow. Grow is the soul. Grow is love. Grow is being positive. Grow is God. So even from that, if we can simplify life down to your truth, your feelings, and anything then that isn't that, so any frustration, any anger, any worry, any anxiety, anything that I would label as fear, that's not your truth. So it's almost saying, right, how do I get back to that love space? And love space starts at a place of peace. It doesn't have to be this euphoric high that sometimes we're always chasing. It's now, in this moment. That's love. So it's like, how do we keep this flow going? And now we can start watching the external world and start accepting what comes into our space and what we can now say, nope, and protect our energy from that. So it's perfect when people can see the visuals aspect of it. And I encourage people to go and search the water experiment. You can also do it the rice experiment. And you can see that the mold actually grows on the rice, even by putting the label hate and the label love on the pots. You can see the influence that changes. So words really do have power.
Well, that's fascinating. They don't call it spelling for a reason, right? At the end of the day, when we create sounds with our vocal apparatus, we are transmuting thoughts that are flowing to us from a higher place, right? Because we aren't, not necessarily all of our thoughts, but we are sustained by that higher place, and we can receive those thoughts at different points. And then we transmute those thoughts into something that is discernible, actionable, and usable in a different level of reality, this 3D, 4D sort of consciousness-based walk, this dream spell that we all walk around in, and every single day. It's funny when we talk about words, because that sort of leads exactly into the issue of sleight of hand warfare and code breaking, right? The words and how these things are applied, they sort of give us an idea of what's going on and what sort of forces may be behind things, or certainly what sort of forces are monitoring and actively participating in things. You were the first person to point out to me, and I'd never thought about this, and I was ashamed that I hadn't caught it, that Maricopa County, Arizona, where the entire election issue really kicked off to begin with in 2021, and has kicked off a massive, movement, a wave of change really across the United States and around the world. The central portion of that identity, Maricopa, is the word RICO. I thought that was absolutely fascinating because, when Q comes out and tells us direct comms come in many different forms, or things that, there are things that are statistically impossible. And is it, at what point is it mathematically impossible that this could happen this way? I think it's worth highlighting that symbolism, which is a form of coded language that they use, which often involves wordplay. Just look at the word mortgage, right? Pledge of death. So whenever you go to get a house, you're pledging to the cabal that you're going to die. It's actually really incredible. And so these things do have power, because that spiritual medium that we all live in, that we work within, it is designed to empower us. We live on an earth that emits a magnetic field. It has extreme power that it itself emits electrically, biochemically, right, on these different levels, photoscopically. we have power that we intake from the earth. The idea of grounding with our feet, being barefoot on the ground. I mean, any good Southern lady here in the United States of America can tell you the benefits of that, right? And they often live very long, very happy lives. And so when we're working within this spiritual medium, all of these sorts of things, the words, the spellings, the way that we conduct ourselves, they do have some amount of meaning, and being conscious of them allows us to, I think, more clearly focus on the ones that we may wish to consciously change, right? Like the idea of a mortgage being really what it is. Why can't we call it something else? Why can't we reposition and redefine maybe the energy behind that, or the intention that all of that is offered in? Maybe we can reshape the housing market for something that's actually balanced for we the people, right? So anyway, all of that being said, I find it fascinating that we're talking about the words. What are your thoughts on the sleight of hand and just the general idea of words and espionage warfare all tying together?
Yeah, so the words, so the way that I look at it now, the English language is the language of angels. It's English, and English language allows you to use words without a structure. So we can put words, whereas other countries, I was living in Brazil, there's a format. So if you speak a certain way, you're almost stuck in the past, or you're stuck in a certain way. And I always used to just think the English language was so deceptive, and look at all the words that they've used. And the word government is govern is to control, ment is the mind, and politics means all, and ticks, blood-sucking parasites. And I thought, it's so clever though. Like, how are they using that? So I realized is when we change the perspective and we look from the high perspective, symbolism will be their downfall, but symbolism will be our uprising, because now we can see the signs. It's almost like, so in the Bible, it says the mark of the beast is that of the beast or the man. So now that we see the evil are holding up their signs and they've been waving it around for years, at that point we thought, oh, they're in control. But now we know the truth. We just see it for what it is. So even in the English language, you mentioned a few times the word emit. Think mirror. Time. Time is the mind. Emit is your soul. It's your energy. Look at the pet dog, put a mirror in it. God, use that as your reference. Be present, be love, be there, play, joy. So the words are in plain sight. So in the Q posts, they even show you that they use even another dimension using gematria. I think it was post 40. So even the letters now they convert into numbers, and the one that they give you the reference of was DJT. And so it shows you that if we was just to speak normal English, the evil people, we're in a war, remember, the evil people would know our plan. But because they don't come from a place of love or creativity, they cannot see it. So the moment we start getting in that space with awareness, which is our light, we can start seeing all the clues in plain sight. And the English language and things like you mentioned, the Maricopa County, is telling us there. So Maricopa County, if you look at the word as well, you've got the mother and the father, Ma and Pa, in the middle of Rico. And if you type in Rico on the Q post, there's only one post that comes up, and it takes you to 2018 Arizona election fraud. And it shows you how he did it then 3 days after the midterm elections. And all of a sudden, if you can now start seeing that from the military perspective, and also I encourage people, go back on Netflix, and this is a must watch for anyone to see how intelligent this plan really is. It shows you how we used the RICO Act in the 80s to take down the mob in New York, which was influenced by Rudy Giuliani. They even got the mafia to build Donald Trump's building. You can see that we were already setting up things then. We were so successful within that part that the only way that you could ever end this whole war is something like the RICO Act. You have to just take them up in one big swoop, because otherwise you're constantly explaining to the whole world, well, who's that person? What did they do? And people just switched off. We've just taken down the whole government. What for? You just get your whole list of things out and you just read them all off. So yeah, you only can start spotting that when you're in that calm space and have your knowing first that this is military led. We do have a commander in chief. We do have all the resources, the NSA. We do have the FBI and the CIA on our side, serving with distinction. but it's to be able to have that as a knowing first, because all of a sudden you can relax when you do get challenged with information that could kind of rock you off center, but you know what your truth is then. And then all of a sudden you can start having fun with the different meanings that Q gives us.
That's a really cool way to look at it at the end of the day. Q tells us that there are, double agents, that there are plants that are on our side, that there are patriots in trusted places in different areas. Q tells us to trust ourselves, and to trust our research abilities. And I think that's really what, the point of the Q operation was for. It was to not only awaken us to a few things, which of course were the main focus of the drops, but it was also to present information in a succinct, concise, easily digestible way that would spur, the vast majority of humanity to look at that and go, well, I can't outright refute that, so now I have to go and look this up. And that's really the concept of the Great Awakening overall, and the taking back of these, dimensions that you're talking about. The dimension of spelling, the dimension of understanding that words have power, the dimension of understanding that, mental health is important, but spiritual health is more important. The dimension of understanding that we can be or do or have most of the things that we want in life, but we have to have our focus in the right place, right? Because we are extremely powerful beings, but with that power comes great responsibility. There's a lot, I think, that we maybe don't get behind as far as the reverence of who we really are and who and what, creator that we're made of, and made in the image of. There's a reverence I don't know as we talk about as much as we maybe should, because we're here to take care of the world. I mean, we were literally given, they call it the Garden of Eden in days of old, right? But in the beginning, we were given this earth. We were given this realm, if you will, for our enjoyment, for our pleasure, but also for us to learn on, grow on, copulate on, have a wonderfully enjoyable experience. The earth was made symbiotically for us. Our job has been to caretake for the earth. And I understand that while we did get duped and we did get usurped, and that is a part of it, I'm sure that the earth is very much looking forward, and I think God is too, to us being back in the driver's seat, so this can be more appropriately cared for and given the type of appreciation and respect and love that it really deserves.
Definitely. There's 2 points on that for me. The Q post as well. So I'm from the UK, and I'm now over in Arizona. I was told to come here. God told me to come here, and I've seen a lot more stuff at the county levels, and I didn't realize until I was here the corruption with the cartel and the border. It goes a lot deeper than politics. One of the things that Q has got me to do, though, is now have a deeper connection to God. So the biblical text now, the way that I use the Q posts, I'll go and have my own little search, one word, or I'll go on there to get my confirmation. It's allowed me to now go and do that with the Bible, and all of a sudden I'm getting confirmation in so many other aspects of my life, and it's like there's beauty everywhere. So I encourage people, and a lot of people that still question Q, everyone that questions Q hasn't been on the Q post, and everyone that listens to other people sharing the Q post, I encourage people, go on there yourself and just have a little play, because all of a sudden you'll start finding stuff that resonates with you, and you'll pick up absolute golden nuggets, but it was pushed there for you to find. And all of a sudden that's taking your own power back, because you're not then relying on other people. You're relying on your intuition, and you're being able to share that from your findings. So I feel that Q has really helped me connect to God and to the Bible on a deeper level. I come from more of a spiritual practice and a spiritual background, and it's kind of emerged into the one creator. And then on the world that you mentioned as well, this playground that we have here, when you start seeing the beauty in all things, and then you start actually paying attention, the birds are speaking to us all the time. The trees, if you look at carefully, there's life all within that. And the one thing that excites me is if we use love again, and you look at the animals that are all around, there's a lot of animals that are in fear, and they're fear of humans. Can you imagine in a world where, and you see it in households sometimes, you've got random animals that all just get on. There'll be a tiger and a Rottweiler. There'll be a goat with the dogs and the cats, but they grow up with love. That's all they know. So can you imagine soon you take that darkness and evil out, which overnight you'll see that fear will drop, because we'll see what the new world is ahead of us, which is exciting. But also look at God's creation right there for us to all experience together in this new love space. And I just see that there's going to be a lot more synergy with the creation and with nature, and we're going to get a lot more teachings because we're actually seeing it now without distractions from the system that has been created for us over the years.
Well, it's funny that you're talking about this, and I've been gelling in my mind for a while now, this idea of, when Q says that 4 to 6% are lost forever. So the implication then at that point is a comfortable 9 in 10 people, when all of this is over, when we're through this process, sort of looking to the other side, there's going to be a comfortable 9 in 10 margin that's going to say, you know what, I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with why it had to be this way. So I'm going to move forward with that. So I've been gelling in my mind for a while this concept of being able to convert, if you want to use the term, or maybe even influence is a better term, the very radical left, who are of the younger generation, the younger ilk, and who many of them are just simply brainwashed. If they had the correct information, right, they would likely share a similar opinion, because at the end of the day, in a perfect world, we would have an honest media, and we will eventually have that. But as of right now, we don't. We have a sort of coordinated effort between, government and agencies and media and things like that to push a certain anti-love, agenda that they cloud in this really weird idea of tolerance of certain aberrant behaviors and things of that nature. So you're talking about the earth, and you're talking about putting the love back into the earth, and putting the love back into the idea that we're here to caretake for the creation, and that we should have some reverence with our creator and some time spent with our creator, every day. Certainly, I mean, the tradition here in the United States, right, is church on Sunday, but certainly more than that, right? We can do this every day. And it can be a very rejuvenative, wonderful experience. But I've been wondering, how do we reach that side of people? And I think you may have just given a clue about how to do that. This young demographic are extremely concerned about the nature of the environment, the nature of the world that we live in. To say that they love the trees and love the animals is a gross understatement. And so when we put the proper balance back into things like, environmentalism, which does not have to be a bad concept. When things are not weaponized, when they're offered with the truest, purest intentionality and decentralized in a way that no one necessarily has undue influence, things sort of naturally stay in that love-based balance. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. And also if we're looking at the whole picture, all assets seized, and also the evil people, the small percentage that control the whole world, all that funding goes back to everyone else. Then you've got the whole legal system, the corporations, and all the mundane stuff that has no meaning for us. And also on top of that, the stress and the divides and the time it's taken up. It's our currency that we're giving up. That all comes back to us. So all of a sudden, we're not fighting to try to find ourselves in this big bad world. We've got this big beautiful world now where we get to express ourselves. And I feel that that's an important part of my role as well, is to help people, because it hasn't happened yet, is to take there and use our imagination. All we know is the big bad world from before. So we're stuck in the past, but that's going away. If we really look at the bigger picture, that's not going to be there anymore. So yes, this is terrible, but let's flip it and find the opposite. And the younger generation, as soon as they get wind of what there is, and also the technology, there's a lot being held back for us, waiting for us to all get access to. They said we're going to have a quantum leap. So you look at some of the military stuff that's like 5-6 generations ahead. Imagine when that starts coming to us as well. So for me, it's really trying to get into that creative space, and you do that within the silence. You go within and start using the imagination that in magic inside your body, and all of a sudden I feel you're only going to want to go that way. Every negativity thing, that world didn't work before, so you can hold on to it, but look at everyone else smiling, look at all the freedom, look at your kids running around in the streets again without mum and dad and their subconscious thing, where are they? Now it's going to be freedom. So it's to try to get into that headspace, remove evil. And if you take away the pedophiles, if you take away the human trafficking, like we're seeing it all in the mainstream now. So the dark is now in the light. So you take that then away, you have to replace it with something. And that's where all the solutions and all the projects that have been held back, that's going to come our way. So it opens up the door for a complete change. But it comes back to us then. Are we willing to receive that? Are we ready to accept that? And for that to happen, there has to be change that takes place within our life, which comes back to dropping the fear and coming into that love space. And you'll see that we're all going to be supported. You remove censorship from the internet, we have access to all things. All of a sudden, the education is not in a set systematic way, which is conditioning our kids in a negative. All of a sudden, it's like, where do you want to go? Look down these different routes.
Incredible. I think at the end of the day, we all are extremely excited for what is coming, because there are just too many of us now at this point around the world that are awake. And there are a great number of us patriots out there that are exceptionally awake, that are perhaps too awake. And so at the end of the day, having that sort of alignment as one people, it may take the sleepers a little longer, right? It may take what we would call the normies a little longer. All of us at one point in time, we were a normie. We were going along, enjoying the world, living our lives, content to, work towards the things that we desired and enjoy them and be pleased and thankful for the things that we had, right? But at the end of the day, it truly is possible, and it is supposed to be this way, that we enjoy our walk through life so much more, that we find a lot more fulfillment, a lot more meaning in different points along the way, and that we teach our children not necessarily that their possibilities in life can be limitless, because sometimes that may not align with your own situation or your own belief system. But I think it is worth teaching that if everything is balanced in a loving way and offered with a pure intention and a cheerful heart, right? I think the book says, given in a cheerful heart, that really is how we build things with one another, because at that point we're sort of cooperating on a level that is sacred, but it's just really enjoyable to do at the end of the day.
And we also open up to country, like we're connected as a world now, and it's the first time ever that something like a pandemic, COVID, 5G, corrupt governments, so all the evil has actually connected us. If we go back throughout generations, without something like the internet, we wouldn't have that. So all of a sudden, it also opens up for us to go and explore a lot more about the world that we live in, and also all the secrets that are within all the different communities. And if we go back in time, we then start finding out the real truth about our history. For me, I get excited about all of this because it just takes it onto a completely new level. And all of a sudden, you look over there, and now you're learning about the body in the ways that we've never been told before. We're learning about meditation and stillness in the mind over here. Now we learn about the earth and actually what the plants are actually capable of to help us heal. And that we can actually create our own food by planting things, giving it love, and then being able to give back to the community. So it's really, really exciting, and it is that balance part. I feel that that's a really important word, is balance within. And then everything that you see outside of you, that's a reflection of your state. So it is moving in that direction. And you must have noticed it as well, SG, so even where we are at the moment, if we go back just 2 months, if we go back 6 months, if we go back 2 years, like the shifts have definitely changed. There is still a lot of fear, but if you look at the comparison and the collective, it's a huge difference.
It's very noticeable. I was commenting with my wife recently when we were out and about snagging some groceries that some individuals, a few carts ahead of us in the self-checkout area, were having a discussion about reptilians. Hearing these sorts of things, and it was a serious discussion. I mean, you could tell that they were sort of trying to be quiet about it. So they were actually giving it much more credence than they wanted to let on. And we all sort of understand how to read those signs, right? But that's what's so beautiful about this process. When Q says it had to be this way, I'll be honest with you, I don't really enjoy that phrase, because I think in some respects it could have been done differently and had the same effect. However, when we look at the process of discovery, when we look at the process of original experience, original to a person from their own individual vantage point, which is the only vantage point that really matters to them and all of us out there, and we all know it when we all can admit it. At the end of the day, when the original experience causes such a change in the human being, and the process of discovery is kicked off and curiosity is now ignited again, maybe for the first time since we were young adolescents, it becomes this journey that can really take you to incredible places. And I think for a lot of us on the awakening experience, we end up in the dark places before we end up in the light places. But it speaks to the nature of the human being. We take it on the chin and we just keep going. We find the positive, the silver lining in, the cloudy, stormy sky. We bounce off of things. We're sort of an extension of God in a way in this world that these individuals have been trying to kill for 7,000 years. And it's like whack-a-mole. They just can't do it. And so what's really cool about that is to look at how many of us have come together, like you said, in a unified pattern all around the world, ignited together by things like Q, things like the pandemic, the egregious evils that are being done, things that are now meeting the very big mainstream area, right? Child trafficking now in the very mainstream area. Sound of Freedom geared up to make a record-breaking launch here in just a few days. So we're living through a time where all of us are realizing that there are horrible things in the world. And because that is true, we have the ability to change that. So there don't have to be horrible things in the world. We can move forward together. We can invert this inversion and rebalance the world and our relationships with one another, especially at the nation state level, back to what they were always supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. And it's that awareness and discovery of the darkness that shows that we are in the light now. Because if we go back 10 years, the word human trafficking was mostly not spoken that much. And if it was definitely silenced. Then before Trump come in, just before you had the Pizzagate, so it just started getting in. 2020, we was hearing it a lot more. Now there's films about it coming out. And it's going to send shockwaves because that film's going to be sold out. So the rest of the world that haven't paid attention, that choose not to go into the darkest of dark, they're going to have to be asking questions, what's this film about? And the movie itself is going to be, was meant to be one of the best movies out anyway, just to watch from entertainment purposes, but it gives you the real truth. So what that's going to do is going to set a pathway for us to be able to have these discussions. And our role for people watching, remember, our loved ones that are chosen not to have get involved with this, and the ones that have had divides and we've had arguments and resistance, just know that they're still in fear, and know that the truth, they're feeling it. They're getting poked by the truth all the time now, and there's less and less people that they can associate with. But if they at least accept into that, that means their whole life in their eyes is a lie, which all of our lives have been based on a lie. But that's fearful. But they also then have to deal with the consequences. Well, if it's a lie, then I've done this, I've done that, I've said this. So our role, because we're in a war, they're still the ones stuck on the battlefield. Our role then is to be able to present this information away from a place of love. Look down here. They don't have to go down the dark rabbit holes now. We can present it in a way. So for every bit of darkness that's coming our way, we have to be shown that. Because if we go into future generations, when we pass on, our kids are still going to be there. Their grandkids are going to be there. So we have to be shown every aspect of it. So as we get to that scare event, as we reach the precipice, we're going to start seeing more and more evil stuff being shown to us, but it's being shown from an education purpose rather than we get caught in the storm. So for me, it's if you can observe it as the movie like we're told it is now, and have faith and have trust, zoom out and be the observer from the 40-foot view, because otherwise you're going to have to put a strap on and buckle up. And just so to take then, knowing that the darker it gets now is the more closer we are to experiencing what I'm hoping is going to be this massive Great Awakening event, which I feel that we're getting closer and closer now.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Just today, sometime in the early morning hours, the profile at Q on TruthSocial changed the cover photo and the profile banner to a blackout. And we know that Q has said multiple times that a blackout is coming. And I postulate the theory. It's based on some basic research that I've done, but it seems likely that the blackout will have to come as a response to them stemming the flow of information, things like Sound of Freedom, other movies that are being released, right, being talked about, things that are coming out on Twitter that still are being allowed to circulate. They're being given promotion. Tucker Carlson with his 115 million views, with his inaugural appearance on Twitter. The information space has been blown apart like a powder keg. And so at the end of the day, What we're really talking about is arriving at a point, no matter what, that zero sum moment, if we can call it that, where if you are the opposing force in this particular process, you realize that now there is truly nothing you can do. So you might as well just do everything in your power. Um, I think we are approaching a point like that. I think that the last half of this year is going to be an incredible time of awakening. This is the year of the water rabbit. This is the time for great awakening. You know, being going down the rabbit hole, being flexible like water, that would be, that's sort of how the Asian lens would look at things like that. And so, it's amazing along this process that things occur in a way that everyone from every culture and every nation can find something to be coordinative about, in cooperation with, can find common ground, common interest, and it sort of makes this, worldwide bandage that prevents humanity from falling into anarchy and chaos as we throw off what really amounts to a 7,000-year-old prison system.
Mm-hmm. And it's where we go one, we go all, isn't it? It's I've gone completely blank on that. Everything that we're being shown now on your last episode, when you're even seeing the cyber attacks, it's kind of suggesting now that there is only going to be one outcome there. So it's every, as you mentioned, then every aspect of society, the movies, the computer games, Netflix is changing its message out there now as well. It's just highlighting now, it is leading us to that one place.
Well, my friend, I'm extremely excited to get there, to be perfectly honest. I've got some dear family members who I have tried coming at from several different directions, but they are so protected in their worldview, and they are so protected in what they understand to be the case in front of them. And, I think at the end of the day, we all have a little bit of pride, and that's okay. And some of us maybe a little more thickly than others. I've got, lots of people that I know that are academics, right? They're highly intellectual. They believe themselves to be extremely well informed. They sort of build an identity around being a very well informed person. And they're sort of incorrigible when you bring up these topics that have plenty of proof to them and really are on the majority tongues out there amongst we the people. But they don't come from what they believe to be the credible area, right? And so people ask me, often, why haven't we taken out the mainstream media? Why haven't we allowed them to air more of the truth? If we have control of some of their broadcasting rights here in the United States, and I believe that we do, why have we done things? Why are we allowing them to continue to foment these narratives? And I always sort of think about that for a moment, and I come back to the idea that it was the denial of information that led humanity to the brink. It was the denial of access to the real truth, to all of the facts, to total transparency that is crucial when decision making is at hand, right? And choices are being made. That process is why we're here. And so the mainstream media needs to go down probably very near last, because they have to have sufficient time to hang themselves before all of humanity, before we hang them for real. And it's not necessarily from a place of hatred or vengeance that we should do that. It's from a place of justice and balance, because mankind moving forward will experience a growth period back to what it was always supposed to have been, that would have been possible had those charged with relaying information to the masses were actually doing so in the best interest of our creator and our spiritual identity. And for the first time, I think as we move forward, that's why we had to have the citizen journalists and the citizen podcasters and the citizen broadcasters and people that would go out and they would issue commentary and they would observe things in their area and they would share where their own personal perspective was coming from. And we had access to an alternate flow. We created an alternate flow of information. And now we can use that network, which is becoming the greatest portion of the infrastructure out there, I believe, to carry us across the finish line, to really balance things and to keep humanity informed, right, to the best degree possible, as long as we still have access to electronic devices. And we can carry the proper messages. We can carry the focus of the love in the world. We can carry the focus of, restoring balance in the classroom, restoring parental rights in the classroom, opening up the educative process, right? Education, the word educate, it comes from the word educo. Educo means to draw out from within. So what we're really supposed to be doing in the school systems is not so much teaching different topics, although those topics do need to be learned, but we need to be developing innate knowledge and talents, innate gifts, right? Playing to the enjoyments of this, I mean, especially from the kindergarten, first and second grade levels, really highlighting the possibilities for them so that they can sort out their own personal knowledge and learn to grow into it. And I think we're going to live to see that world, Harry. I really do.
Yeah, I totally agree as well. And you're already seeing it with the younger generation within sports and the way that sports have evolved in terms of performance. But they have the technology now to record themselves on the spot, to analyze themselves as the observer. And there's this will to, it's gone from kind of like the money and the fame, but now you're getting people that are just dedicated to exactly what they do from love. And then coming back to the newsreels and stuff as well, this war is still about each person individually. And yes, we want to be able to shake our loved ones up, but they still have to come to their truth themselves. And it's almost like we have to show them every part of it. And it's getting more and more ludicrous. So you can look at the trans thing now. If we had a one-on-one conversation with anyone in this world and you say, come on, let's have do you really think that's normal? Do you really agree with that? Is that what you're saying? And some people are still stuck in this horrible conditioning, but it's almost like we're putting it all in their faces now. So when it does get to that point, at least we can say, we've tried everything. We showed you here, we was there's the evidence. And also that diverse part of the journalists that are now coming through. We don't resonate with everyone's message. And yet when you hear someone that you do click with, and then all of a sudden they got similar interests and passions and the way that they're speaking about certain topics, you then buy into it. In the world before, those people that were outspoken, they would have got hunted down. They would have got silenced. In some cases, they would have been taken out. So now it's just to kind of open it up to wherever you turn, you're going to find something that resonates with you. And on the news now, it's getting to the point where they're going to have to start accepting it. And I feel that a lot more people will, that red wave that I'm expecting, they're going to come out in numbers when they can see actually, yeah, I'm with that now. But they don't want to come out at the moment and say, I was wrong. So it's almost when that starts happening, you're going to start seeing people are going to come in waves, because deep down we have had enough of what has been going on and people are ready for it. But when you've got the solution, you've got the military behind your back, you've got all the evil out in plain sight, and to see how deep it goes. You mentioned the Clinton Foundation in the Sound of Freedom and the human trafficking link as well. And that triggered a lot of people. But what people are going to see is human trafficking goes to every part of society. Yes, we're learning about human trafficking, but that does go down to social services, that goes to the police, it goes to the government officials, it goes to the judges. It's like literally every aspect of society. So we need to be shown it all, because if you don't want to watch that one, you're going to see everything links back up to it. So it's a whole takedown of the system.
You know, it really is. And it's going to be a joyful and momentous takedown. And I think an intentional rebalancing of things from the community level up. And I think that's probably a good note to start closing on, is the fact that at the community level, we are going to be back in control again. We are going to have free and fair selection processes called elections, where all of us have a balanced cast and we all get a proper voice. One of the great uniters, I think, in this process is that regardless of your ideology and point of view, with maybe the exception of the radical left having some preferential treatment online, there is a process going on in the world that is rebalancing this idea of freedom of speech, right? We're sort of chewing on this again as mankind. The idea that some information should or should not be out there, or maybe there should be certain ways that we go about it. And at the end of the day, that's going to affect things like community elections. That's going to affect things like who's in control at the county level, who's in control at the clerk level. We'll be able to have transparency in the transactions and the processes. We'll have greater control on a blockchain-based, electronic infrastructure, a sort of a digital infrastructure that is incorruptible, if we want to call it that, or extremely, extremely difficult to corrupt. That will provide greater transparency to all of us. And at the end of the day, it really is the free flow of the information and the control of our communities that changes the equation. And we're more than we're we're well down that road. We're far more than halfway there. I think we're more than 75% of the way there, to tell you the honest truth. We're really reclaiming the narrative space. We're making ourselves relevant enough that just recently Huffington Post ran a hit piece on a quote social media influencer that was a Patriot and Trump supporter. So at the end of the day, we're affecting them in a great and very intense fashion, and they sort of don't know what to do with it, right? It's never been a situation that they've ever been faced with, and so the loss of control, the price of victory, if we want to call it that, the prize, excuse me, of victory, really comes down to the information. And I think with the information, we're going to be able to spiritually grow in a way that has never been possible before.
And I've got to witness that firsthand here in Arizona, because I didn't appreciate how significant the county levels was over in America. In the UK, we don't get told about it. We just see the big names like Carrie Lake, Ron DeSantis, but it's all the state level. But Arizona, the state, is bigger than the whole of the UK. And there's more people in London than there is in the whole of Arizona. So it is so spread out. But what I've witnessed here is the people have been fed up so much that within their communities, they've now taken action into their own hands, and they've now volunteered. And it is most of the time volunteered because of their love for the country and because of their hate for all the corruption that has been going on in the state for so many years, that they now know all the different roles. They know what goes on at the different county levels and what people do at positions. And in that process, they've been exposing a lot of the rhinos too. And we saw the same in January when we saw Speaker of the House, and it went round about 15 times. Most of the world didn't really know what went on about then, but every time it was repeated, oh, what is this about? What does this mean? Oh, what Speaker of the House doesn't have to be in politics. We're now getting an education lesson from it as well, but people are doing that because they love their country, they love what it represents, and they love the idea of where we're heading to. So it's going to be an exciting point when you can start doing that from a place of love as well, because all of a sudden you've got that aspect. And I believe that Donald Trump has also reduced the term time for people when they're in politics. So when they are in that position, they're going to be doing a good job whilst the people are watching as well. And it comes back to what you're saying, that we're going to be the gatekeepers or the shepherds of this land. We also do that within the county levels and the communities too. It's kind of like a reflection of each aspect of the new world.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. Well, folks, I hope you've really enjoyed today's audio chat. It's been a really fun time. Harry, where can people find you, my friend?
So I'm on Rumble. I've got a Rumble channel called Harry the Soul Coach. And on Instagram, I do quite a lot of posts on there as well. So it's Harry the Soul Coach and harrythesoulcoach.com. But just to people watching as well, I deliver 2 Patriots meditations free every single day on Telegram. It's Harry the Soul Coach meditations. And all I encourage people, if you've not meditated before, if you're attached to that label, come and experience just the community aspect and see all the positivity and the shifts that take place within that. Because once you do start getting that connection with yourself, all of a sudden your body's still, your mind is calm, which means it's clear, it's clarity. You can make your choices. And I just love to see the shifts that are taking place, and it's happening all the time. And if you feel in a dark and lonely place, there's people all around the world now that are on similar journeys, but now making a difference. And what we spoke about earlier, that energy is going out. It's being received all around the world. So the more we start getting in tune with that, the more powerful it is. So I invite everyone to come and join us. Every single day we do that on Harry the Soul Coach Meditations on Telegram.
Fantastic, my friend. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap today on audio chat number 8. I'm SG Anon, and I'll be back with you again soon on the Q News Patriot. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
See ya.